Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry you have to listen to me again this afternoon. So thank you very much for joining. So my name's Hannah. I'm the head of marine at the Angling Trust, which for those of you that don't know is the national governing body for recreational fishing in England. So we're effectively the peak body in England for angling. So today I'm going to give you a bit of an overview with respect to how things have changed since we've left the European Union. So back in 2016, 10 years ago, the UK made a decision to depart from the European Union and the Common Fisheries Policy, which presented us with a number of challenges with respect to how we're going to manage our waters moving forward. So I'm going to outline how that's changed for angling, or what's not changed for angling, through this presentation today. So just as a bit of an overview, recreational sea fishing in the UK is estimated to contribute up to 1.5 billion to the UK economy and support around 15,000 jobs, both indirectly and directly. Of course, we all know that it builds a connection between people and the marine environment. There are around 400 charter boats operating around the UK at the last count. But there is no general sea angling licence, so unlike freshwater, recreational anglers in the UK, apart from the newly introduced bluefin tuna permit, do not need to register or pay to participate in recreational sea angling in the UK. Similarly, there's no mandatory data collection, although there is a diary-based programme known as the Sea Angling Diary Project, and my colleague Kieran Hyder is giving talks about that this week. And that is utilised in science and management to some degree. And similarly, there's limited regulation, although we have a bag limit for sea bass, for pollock, and the tuna fishery I was talking about this morning. So what was the post-Brexit promise? Well, we were, obviously, politics aside, the post-Brexit narrative was that we would become an independent coastal state, moving away from the EU Common Fisheries Policy, where recreational fishing is not recognised. Within the Common Fisheries Policy, it stipulates that recreational fisheries will only be given attention where they're in conflict with commercial fisheries or pose a threat to commercial harvest. So there's very limited recognition of the role and the importance of recreational fishing within the EU Common Fisheries Policy. So we were promised that there would be recognition of recreational fishing in law. We would achieve world-class fisheries, although no one's told me what that looks like yet. And that there would be opportunities for social and economic growth of recreational fisheries. And of course, a stronger voice and representation in management and decision-making. So before I dive in a little bit deeper into what that now looks like, just to highlight some of the inherited issue that we have in the UK, the legacy that we're dealing with. There's a lot of institutional inertia with regard to recreational fisheries and their management structures. They're not set up for recreational fishing engagement. Many of them don't even know what recreational fishing is. I went to a meeting with the chief executive of our marine management organisation, and he asked me what sport fishing is. So that was a good, beginning to that conversation. There's a lot of allocation conflict, particularly in the inshore environment. 70% of our commercial fleet is inshore commercial fishing inshore small vessels. So there's a lot of opportunities for conflict over gear, over spatial distribution, over resources. And we've got a very rich commercial fishing history in the UK. So there is very much this entitlement, I believe, from that side of the coin. There's also a lot of undervaluation of the socio-economic value of recreational fisheries in the UK. We really don't know much about it other than those high-level assessments. And there's a lot of issues around compliance and enforcement that are all related to the fact that we don't have a licence. We don't know who these people are. They're a very disparate community, and it's very tricky to engage with them. So this was our legal reset. 4 years after we left the European Union, the Fisheries Act came into fruition, and we were recognised as a legitimate stakeholder in UK fisheries management for the first time. And there's two policy levers associated with the Fisheries Act. The first one is the Joint Fisheries Statement, and as you can see there, that within the fishing industry definition, the economic activity concerned with catching fish for food or sport is included. We're also included in the fisher definition and the fisheries definition too. And when I say there was a little party in my office that day, I'm not exaggerating. Everyone was very pleased to see this. But then we dig a little bit deeper, and unfortunately, when it comes to recreational sea fishing, from a UK perspective, not all of the 8 objectives of the Joint Fisheries Statement apply to recreational fishing. The ones that do are very environmentally focused, and rightly so, but there are missed opportunities around the equal access objective and the national benefit objective. Akin to the Joint Fisheries Statement, we are now underway we're in the process of delivering and developing 43 fisheries management plans. This is effectively what's going to be the common fisheries policy. Yep, it's been a long road. We've only completed around, off the top of my head, 12 of these so far, so we've still got a long journey, and fisheries are devolved in the UK, so it's not only England developing these, we've also got to go through Welsh Government, Scottish Government, and that massively overcates and elongates the process. But one of the positive things that have emerged from this is that there are now structures for the recreational fishing sector to be involved from the onset in fisheries management, and that's really a first in the UK. I had many civil servants come up to me and say, so what is an angler? Like, what do they do? Like, what's their interests? So where do I find these people? So we are really much starting from ground zero with respect to some of this stuff. And even getting the recognition in fisheries management plans that species like bass, which angling constitutes 47% of the catch, are important, is a huge step forward. So we now have, as I say, these balanced stakeholder groups, which is fantastic. And we're really working hand in hand with the commercial sector, which many people didn't believe would be possible on certain species to design and deliver fisheries management. But this is all wonderful, and it's great in our little bubble. But as part of the TCA, so the agreement that we signed with the European Union when we left, we actually need to think bigger than just ourselves, because obviously fish move, they go places, they don't belong to any of us really. And that's where the slight complicated issue of European legislation still comes into play. So every year, an organisation called ICES, which the International Council for the Exploration of the Sea, publishes advice on the state of fish stocks and how much should be removed each year. And effectively, the the UK and the EU go into bilateral negotiations every November to discuss the outcome of the TACs for the following year for over 200 fish stocks. And what we've been finding is that although we might have ambitions of a certain degree in national policy, many of them are not possible due to the European frameworks that we're still working within. So, for example, there is an ambition to look at alternative harvest strategies for sea bass, maybe use maximum economic yield, but within the common fisheries policy, everything is tied to maximum sustainable yield. So there is no political will whatsoever to look at those two things separately. Similarly, in the EU now, there's the control regulation, which stipulates mandatory data collection. We don't have a similar framework in the UK, so there's this constant push and pull narrative that we're working within. So what has changed? I'm conscious I've not got a lot more time, so I'll be quick. So we've got that recognition in our legal frameworks and our policy frameworks, which is a fantastic step forward, and it explicitly recognises the recreational fishing industry as a legitimate sector. It's named part of the fishing industry, although I think they just utilise that as and when they want to. And there are also co-management models as well. So as I mentioned, we've got these fisheries management plan frameworks and groups which are a great stride in the right direction. There's a few things in motion. So we've got growing interest and investment into recreational data collection partnerships, particularly through things like the Sea Angling Diary project. Probably not surprising for me to tell you that recreational fisheries are extremely data poor in the UK across all parameters, and particularly when we're looking at the fisheries management plan framework, there's a big dependency on that data being there, and we don't have it, so we can't move forward with policy until we do. There's a stronger focus on education and outreach, working more closely with the recreational sector to improve compliance, support and stewardship. Many anglers don't even know that they've been recognised within the Fisheries Act. They don't know what it means. So when you're trying to engage them with various different projects, whether it be compliance, education, science, funding support that's now available, they just look at you with a blank face, or they find out, 12 months later and think, oh, I didn't know that. Like, I wanted to get involved. So it's a bit of a journey, just to educating the community on what fisheries management frameworks look like, what all the players are, what all the opportunities are for engaging with consultation. It's been a long 6 years. And then with respect to other things that there are limited progress on, one of the key areas that really needs to move forward in terms of policy and management in the UK is the recognition of the charter boat sector. So the charter boat sector is effectively commercial fishing boats for the recreational sector, and they very often fall through the cracks of recognition within government, despite having a lot in common with the inshore commercial sector. So particularly things like increasing regulation, rising costs, low levels of recruitment into the sector. They're just not recognised in the same way that the inshore commercial fleet are. We believe at the Angling Trust that we need a national recreational fisheries strategy. We don't even have a national fishing strategy in the UK for the commercial sector, let alone a recreational one. But it would be fantastic if we could have that in the next 5 to 10 years. In addition to the environmental focus for data collection, removals, all of that stuff, post-release mortality. We also think we need more data on the socio-economic assessments of recreational fisheries. And working out allocation frameworks, I think historically there's been a lot of it's them versus them in terms of recreational versus commercial, but particularly in the UK we're dealing with a significant amount of marine spatial squeeze when we're looking at offshore wind developments, marine protected areas. There's a reduced number of fishing areas available, and we need to be practicing coexistence rather than it's mine and it's yours. So in terms of the summary of where we are, I'm nearly finished. The Common Fisheries Policy treated recreational fishing as a potential problem to be regulated when in conflict with commercial fishing interests. But the Fisheries Act is potentially allowing recreational fishing to be treated as a legitimate public interest fishery alongside commercial fishing interests. But we need the political will, and we need it to be more properly resourced in order to support this implementation. Thank you very much.